Hey, I'm one of those guys that hates it when they start a meeting late to wait for people. So if you can hear me, how about we start on time?
Sounds good.
Great. All right. Well, I know Adam's hearing me, so hopefully everybody is. Gee, I hadn't planned on doing the camera because anybody that's seen me on camera will know why. But hi, this is Kevin, if you haven't seen me. Certainly a familiar voice and lots of long-winded emails over time. So want to get a chance to really show something. So many people, you know, everybody in this call is AccountMate users, and there's gold inside that system. There's actionable data inside your AccountMate system that so many people don't know is there, or they work really hard to get it. And if you've seen my presentations, I always claim to be the laziest man in town by letting the computers work for us. So what Nowsight has is a plug-in system that automatically mines that gold out of your system, puts it right in front of you, and you get to be lazy too. You get to not work hard to get that data. So that's the driver on this. I don't bug everybody with webinars every other month. Once a year, once every 2 years, when something crosses my path that I go, dang, that would be awesome for so many clients. And I reached out to several of you personally that I know have the data and the operations to really see the benefit from it. So with that, I'm going to turn off my scary picture and turn it over to Adam and let him, we're shooting for about 30 minutes if he talks fast, and focusing mostly on case studies, because sales fluff is nice, but hey, show me how it really worked is the biggest piece that we're trying to hit. So hang on and don't get bored in the first 10 minutes. And Adam, alley-oop.
Great, Kevin, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for taking your time to go through a couple things today. Quick, by way of background, classically trained at Procter & Gamble, but I was in a family business for 15 years. We had the world's largest private label infant nutrition business. And a lot of what I'm going to show you is what I learned classically trained at the large companies, but really learned to make it work functionally and in the real world in our family business. And I'll give you some snapshots along the way. But what we want to talk about today is a couple things. We're going to talk about how to look at your business in a way that will hopefully allow you to see your business in a different light. And if you take nothing else away from the discussion today, I hope to give you ways that you can go back and look at your business and your organization in a way that says, wow, and when I look at it through this lens or this view, I can see things that were there, but I never really looked at in quite that way before, and hopefully extract value like I've done and other people have done using this method. And that's where we'll jump in today. So if you can see my screen, they say only about 5% of the people can see there's actually a number in this white and black image. There's a number embedded in there. And only a small percentage of people can actually see it. And I see, Eugene, you going closer to the screen. It actually, the folks that can see it, it jumps right out. And the folks that can't, try as hard as they can, will be difficult to see. Actually, the number 17 is actually embedded in there. And maybe a small percentage of you people could see it. The reason the people that can't see it is because of the way the noise in the information is presented. It's not evident and immediately apparent. And that would be the message that I would have you walk away today, is that you most likely in your organization have done a great job enabling the collection of data, which means there's a lot of information there. Seeing the number that you need to see or the information you need to get results is normally the next step, the evolution of the hard work that you've done to get to this point. Back in the day when I worked for Procter & Gamble, we were very good at identifying what were called KPIs, key performance indicators, metrics. The challenge often was the time and effort it took to collect the data was inversely proportional to the speed and how useful it actually was. We would collect lots of data, print out lots of charts. The challenge was we were looking at data that we needed to be working 6 weeks in the past to actually affect the graphs and the charts that we were creating. As time evolved, we started using spreadsheets. All of us have worked in spreadsheets. The challenge is just like that original page of the lines, the digital or the diagonal black and white lines, that the data, just because you have it, doesn't mean people read it and use it. And it's funny, this is actually a spreadsheet from one of the companies we had, and it had over 16 different tabs and tables and graphs of which nobody ever looked at. And it's funny, when we began looking in our organizations, we saw that 80% plus people will work with spreadsheets inside a company, yet less than 10% of the people who get a spreadsheet attachment will actually open it. And why is that? And what I wanted to share with you today is 3 different ways to think about your business, where it is in the life cycle, where you are with how you use your data, and how you culturally run your business that may let you think about things a little different. And then we'll talk about the technology we use to get that number 17 to appear from the lines and the white and black background. I'm convinced, and I have yet to see where there's not 20% improvement hidden in businesses. That's that hidden number in the white and black diagonal lines, whether it's sales, productivity, or profitability. And often there's the ability to access that 20% within 6 months of a focused effort. And I'm going to give 3 case studies today where companies did just that through using the tools that I'm going to show you in the next couple slides. And I want, as you think through what I'm sharing with you, is think about your own business in the light of these tools that I'm sharing, and would love to talk offline or take questions at the end on how we can help you find that 20%. Because again, whether you use the software that we'll show you examples of, it's more important that you get that 20%. How you get there and believing it's there is so important. And that's where the journey starts. So I'm going to share 3 practical tools. The first is, this is one of my favorite charts. It's called the rabbit duck chart. And it's interesting because if you look at the picture, facing up, it's a rabbit, and facing to the right, it's a duck. And the question you may ask is, aside from, being a hand sketch and an interesting concept, what value does it really add besides entertainment? And the reason I share the rabbit duck graph is because when I look at many organizations, even in my own, it's amazing how many rabbit duck graphs I see floating around the organization. Information that is interesting to look at, takes a ton of time to collect and create, but has no immediate impact on either improving revenue or reducing costs. And so I have also seen examples where people have taken, the conceptual rabbit duck chart and spent hundreds, thousands of man hours creating the equivalent of a rabbit duck chart that does nothing to change their organization. It's interesting, it's colorful, it shows really well, and it's fun to look at. But the question that always comes back to, is it moving the organization directionally towards finding that improvement that's so critical in today's competitive environment? And so when you hear me talk about a rabbit duck chart, that is what we work really hard to stay away from. And I would encourage, as a homework assignment today, is go back in your organization today, and you'd be amazed at how many rabbit duck charts are floating around in your organization, and spending hundreds of man hours and possibly tens of thousands of dollars a year to create the rabbit duck charts. Where I think it's helpful, and I would share with you, is once you find the rabbit duck chart, well, what is it that it would be better? And this is how I use a filter, and I share this with you to use in your own organization, of 2 simple axes. How simple is it to understand good and bad? And how quickly is it accessible to the people that need it? And speed is in the terms of seconds, not hours or days to tabulate information, pull it together, and send it out by email. But it means it's immediately accessible and relevant. And simplicity means by looking at it, you immediately know good or bad and what to do. And just to break down this chart, if something is slow and complex, that's usually what I would consider a confusing chart or report. If something is complex but comes out very quickly, well, it's difficult because even though you get it quickly, you don't know what to do with it. If something is slow but very simple, it's not actionable because you've received it in such a time frame that it happened in the past, so you're not able to do anything with it necessarily. And so the area that we look for, and this is called the SS value grid, simplicity, speed, value grid, is, are your reports and the data that you're getting, is it immediately accessible and simple to know what's good and bad by looking at it so that somebody knows exactly what to do? And that is where a big opportunity lies. And where you begin to realize this opportunity is the data have fast and real-time insights? Is it simple and intuitive? Does the data get delivered to someone automatically, or do they have to go log into a system and look at it? So it's dependent on them taking action versus the system is delivering it to them instantly. Does it escalate? Meaning if different people don't take action, does it escalate within the organization? Are the insights actionable? And does everybody see one version of the truth across the data set? And this is the simple model that when I look at organizations really is the opportunity, because the data is there, but it's often slow to reach the intended people that can really use it. And it's so complex, it's not immediate evident. And so a couple examples of what I would say that would meet that upper right quadrant, which is simple and quick. Here's an example of a report that comes out real time every day without any human touching it, so that it immediately gets delivered. You can immediately see things are red and green. Green means they're hitting budget or goal. Red means they're not. They're forced ranked to show high to low. Arrows are directional, saying, hey, it's improving, staying the same, or getting worse, and color coded to indicate positive, favorable, or unfavorable. Tiles immediately will give quick snapshots. And if you click a tile or click in the upper right, it gives forensics to give the backup data on what is going well and what isn't. In addition, this report would be received differently by each division or individual based on their scope of work, so that people don't receive multiple sheets, multiple tables. Managers see the scope of their department, individuals see the scope of their work, executives see the scope of the company, again, delivered real time with no human intervention, providing very clear, quick results in a very simple to read format. The other thing that makes this valuable is it doesn't wait for a report to come out. If something is going exceptionally good or bad, for example, if all of a sudden data was entered that made the overtime go over 13% against the standard goal of 2%, an alert would automatically be sent to the people. Now, whether it's overtime, missing a sales goal, a client that has had 3 consecutive months of decreasing revenue, a production line that has hit an amount of unplanned downtime, or yields are off, all of this information that is important to owners, executives, and managers in the business can now be automated so that real-time alerts as a text or an email can be delivered to the people that need to take action. And again, I think Kevin said it very well in the beginning. This is plug-in to the systems and the hard work you've already done by putting in the systems to collect the data. Most people have the data. It's how you now get people to engage using the data to allow them to take action to help you improve your business. The second model, so the first one was what I call the SS, the simplicity, speed, value curve of looking at data. This is what I would call the S curve. And every business goes through a natural cycle. If you think about your organization, every business starts out in what's called the wonder phase. Wow, this is going to be amazing. We're going to enter a business and it's going to be phenomenal. Whether it's a new product or a new business or a division, it starts on a wonder phase. The next is the blunder phase. Wow, this is a lot harder than we thought. If it's a new business, boy, there's more competitors than we thought. The distribution method isn't as easy. The people we thought were going to be successful here, they're not working out quite the way we thought. After the blunder phase, a business goes into what's called the thunder phase, where you see increasing revenues, increasing profit, attrition drops, margins grow, market share grows. Inevitably over time, another phase is hit, which is the plunder phase, where you start to see a leveling of revenues. Competition comes into the market, new technologies are released, and the things that were thundering and helping you grow rapidly are beginning to plateau, which then leads to the under phase. Managers typically will get involved in the thunder phase to recreate their business model so they continue to grow. I typically define the wonder blunder phase as problem solving. The thunder phase is the growth phase, and the plunder under is where repair or reconstruction is required. I'll bring that to light in one simple model, which is Blockbuster Video. Back in the 80s when I grew up, there was a Blockbuster on just about every corner, and they rented VCR tapes. Blockbuster made their money in three ways: the rental of the video, rewind fees, and late fees. Eventually, competitors came to pass and a new technology came to play, which was DVDs. DVDs did not require rewind. So now Blockbuster was at a huge risk of losing a major revenue stream, but they took the next S-curve and they converted their business model over to renting DVDs. And even though they lost the rewind fee, they repositioned their business and their shelves to be compatible with DVD. There was a new technology that came out, was called Netflix, and it was rent for $9.99 a month and get 3 videos delivered to your door. Blockbuster did not compete on that S-curve. They doubled down on long-term leases and said nobody's ever going to wait 3 to 5 days to get a DVD. They want them now on Friday night. Except there was a fourth S-curve that came along, which, as you all know, was on demand. On demand was the fourth S-curve. And again, Blockbuster, through each of these curves, went through the natural cycle of wonder, blunder, thunder, plunder, under. However, their decision to double down on long-term leases and not staffing up to understand subscription is what inevitably caused them to go through the plunder under phase and Netflix to become dominant in the entertainment market. The reason I share this with you is, do you know for each of your businesses, the S-curve you're on and where you sit today, and what your next 1 or 2 S-curves will look like? Understanding that strategically helps you understand the data that you need to run your business so that you can be successful as you navigate. The third model that I'll share with you is called the growl model. The growl model, unlike where the SS data grid looked at your data and the S-curve looked at the life cycle of your business, this looks at your leadership and culture. And there's 5 key things that when you evaluate your organization culturally, if you ask with intellectual honesty, it creates a filter to really ask some tough questions about where you fit within your organization's position to be able to handle some of the opportunities to tap into that hidden 20%. Are you someone that looks at the black and white diagonal lines and says there's nothing there and walks away? Or says, hey, I know there's something there. It's just a matter of retooling the way I see the way I'm looking at this. And the 5 areas simply are, for G, for growl, each letter represents: G is growth minded. R is real-time as insights are available to your team, customized to each. So the data is available to all, but customized to each person that needs it, versus sorting through massive amounts of data to try to find the relevance. The third is, do people take ownership and take accountability for results, and are corrective incentives in place? W, are people willing to drive real systemic change and do the hard work? And L, leadership, do people lead people's hearts and minds, and do they want to engage the workforce, or do they want people to be compliant versus engaged and motivated? With those 3 models, I'd like to take you for a walk through 3 specific case studies of businesses in the real world and how these 3 views, the SS grid, the S curve, as well as the growl model, impacted what we did. And so this is the format, and this template is actually very useful to use within your own company. doing a growl assessment, seeing where your data sits and where you are on the S curve, and planning out the outcomes that you anticipate. This is something we will typically walk clients through. And the revelations that come out of just a simple one page like this are really fascinating. But let's go into the case studies. The first is a manufacturing operation that made infant nutrition. On the growl assessment, it was positioned for failure. Growth had been static and declining growth for the past 6 years. Real-time reports, not only were they not real-time, reports were actually issued about a month and a half, 6 weeks after the close of a month. There was no possible way to ever go back and make changes based on those reports, what they were saying. There was very little ownership and no incentives to improve. There was no willingness to make those changes and tough choices, and leadership had a lack of engagement. In the SS model, data was slow and there was nothing simple about it. Data was buried in typically green screens, and reports were dot matrix printed reports that came out or were due weeks and months, as I mentioned. And in the terms of the S curve, the business was very much positioned in the plunder heading to the under phase. 3 things that I think were interesting that were done. On the effect of moving this curve, of moving the data from simple and fast into this upper quadrant, 3 things were done very quickly. Number 1, when it was acquired, the business had load cells, weights, scales on the bottom of the output of the dryer, which is where powder was created that was then canned. A simple dashboard was put up real time in the cafeteria that showed people real time the number of pounds per hour that were being made, and simply showing what the maximum was made at any period in time. So everybody would see real time what was currently being made versus the best that the machines were capable of. The second thing that was done with data is on a canning line, a real-time meter came out showing the rate at which the can lines were running, the uptime, and the yield. The third thing that was created was a basic database, was a basic dashboard next to those 2 graphs of powder and cans, the quality of the operation showing how good output was made so that we weren't running the machines just faster, but there was a real check and balance of making sure what you were making was really good. With those 3 simple metrics that were applied real time, so managers and maintenance people and operators were given this information real time. If machines were down for more than 20 minutes, a text would go out alerting people immediately. If a quality batch was made that was under investigation, people would be notified immediately. This plant not only went from being on the verge of bankruptcy, it became a leader in its industry. It increased its output almost 3 times from 18 to 54 million pounds a year. The cost to make a pound of product went from over $3 to less than $1. And productivity went from 65,000 pounds a person to over 185,000 pounds per person. A plant that was on track to be bulldozed literally and created a greenfield in Vermont sold for over 808 million 10 years later using these simple principles. What I will show you is the data was simple, it was clear, and it came out not only on a dashboard that sat in the cafeteria and above the manufacturing lines, but it was delivered as an email to the people that needed to see it when they needed to see it. The second case study that I'll share is a distribution business. This is a business that takes product out of a warehouse, loads it in totes, and delivers it to convenience stores. When you stop for gas and you pick up a Twix and a Coke, this is the business of that company. The growl model, high focus on growth. Their reports were PDF reporting that basically only management had access to. The ownership was very management centric. There wasn't a lot of empowerment deeper in the team levels. There was a very high and strong desire to grow and win, and leadership engagement for leading hearts and minds was very high. The challenge was when you look at the SS grid, the speed of the data that it came out was very fast, but the data was very, very complicated. It was buried in multiple tables in large database Excel spreadsheets. So there was lots of information that was quickly accessible, but it wasn't in a simple, easy to understand format. The business was growing very quickly in the thunder phase, so there was never time to stop and put the right things in place. So the business began to very quickly plateau where it was. By putting two simple dashboards in place, extracting information that was already in their control and already in their business, they did three things. They put a real-time dashboard in the warehouse showing the speed at which people picked product and how many hours a day, how many minutes out of an 8-hour shift they were actively picking. They showed the salespeople accounts that were less than a minimum profitability level and showed those accounts where they were having return or discontinued issues. Within 6 months, the warehouse productivity doubled, their gross profit at accounts tripled, and they eliminated almost every single unprofitable account they had, which was close to 20% of their portfolio. They are the top performing in every industry benchmark in their industry. Here's an example of what they put out in the plant in the warehouse. Every picker was ranked on their ability to pick and the speed that they picked from a 1 to 20, and their positions changed and were updated every 30 seconds. This positional dashboard was changed real time as people performed. It kept track of how long they were picking. And if there was more than a 6 to 8 minute period where someone wasn't picking a product that wasn't a break or lunch, an email and text would be sent to the supervisor saying, you may want to check on this person. There's a gap in their performance. When this went up, three remarkable things happened. They went from needing 35 workers on a shift. Within three months, we're down to 18 shift workers. And previously, those 35 workers were working 14 hours a day, 5 days a week. Now it was taking 18 shift workers to do the same thing, 8 hours in only 4 days. They cut staffing in half. They took out 1 day a week they were working, and the number of hours a day went down by almost 50%. Again, this is going back to the model of making the data very quick and accessible real time, and very simple where reds and greens are used to show good and bad. In this example, number 7, when she beat her personal best picking record, she hit a personal best number. She hit 281 versus 248. She got a green trophy next to her name. The people that were exceeding company expectation got an A band next to their name. All of this data people understood intuitively by color codes and rankings, so they could easily adjust their performance to win. When people performed well or when they had opportunities, automatic emails and texts. And here's an example of someone that hadn't registered a pick in 8 minutes. So their supervisor was notified so they could intervene. If something had happened to the person or they were having a problem, they were allowed to intervene in a way that was seen as positive and collaborative. If something was out of stock in this business, typically it would be out of stock and wouldn't be picked up for the following week's inventory stock assessment. Now, if something was out of stock, it was real-time sent to the replenishment manager. They saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in months just by being able to get product back on the shelf that had been in the warehouse because the notification happened instantly. And then in sales, people were given the ability to see their performance in a collaborative way against company expectation and how they were performing individually, both over time, against goal, which is what this green, yellow, red bar is, and how they were performing against each other. Typically, what we've seen is people respond in one of three ways. They either get very excited to beat their personal best, kind of like beating your best game at golf. They want to beat other players competitively, so think of tennis or basketball, or they want to meet company expectation. When all three ways of that information is conveyed in a simple way, hey, we're going to tell you how you're doing against your peers. We're going to tell you how you're doing against the best you've ever done. And we're going to let you know if you're doing good or bad against what the company needs you to do. people tend to really take a different level of ownership, especially when that is tied to incentives that are fair and clear. The third company, which runs AccountMate, and we're going to talk at the end, we're actually going to do a deep dive on this company. I'm giving you an overview of the case studies, but we're going to do a deep dive actually with this customer. Kevin's been nice enough to invite them to a seminar where we take this model and go deep into their business. Was a fencing company. On the growl model, very, very focused on growth, but they were very constrained by what they could see and do by spreadsheets. They could do the spreadsheets very quickly, but they were very simple, but it took a long time to pull all their spreadsheets together with the macros and VLOOKUPs and downloads and multiple tables. They were definitely in the mode of, they were very, very simple in what they could show, but it took a long time to get the information. They had very much belief in empowering their divisions and their people with a strong desire to win and a strong desire to lead hearts and minds. This company on the S-curve was transitioning. They knew they were inheriting this business from they were a third generation family coming in after their grandfather had started the business. And they knew there had to be a better way to grow the business. They knew they had the data, they had invested in AccountMate, and now they wanted to get the data to be seamless in real time. And they were really looking to transition to the next S-curve for their business model. The outcome was all of their branches, sales and revenue improved dramatically. Their factory lead times were dramatically reduced with what I'll show you. And they exceeded their financial benchmarks dramatically with superior operation and financial performance, whether it was AP, AR. Today, they're going and leading and going against a third S-curve where they're actually using different metrics to drive customer engagement as well as employee engagement at a whole new level. Here's an example of a branch scorecard that looks at how they're performing across the metrics that were important to them. And they're able to see very quickly top performers, bottom performers, trends in sales versus previous periods, and different location and individual performance with green and red and leaderboards showing exactly what's going on, with it augmented around alerts to show where good and bad is happening. They've also integrated and begun building a platform with us for tracking Net Promoter Score as a way to understand how they're seen from the point of view of the customer, not just their own internal perception. They use real-time emails like this to show exactly where people are and where they need to be. Christian, you're 5th out of 34 estimators so far. Your branch is in 2nd out of 14, and your charges are 88% of where you need to be, and you've got 13 more days to hit your monthly goal. Here are your top quotes to help you get there, and here's the best that you've ever done. It also will outline specifically where they fit in a very clear metric showing performance over time and against budget. In their manufacturing, they brought the same concept to bear. Red is good, yellow is a concern, blue is good. Metrics to show production rates, throughputs, and benchmarks to show how bottlenecks were affecting overall throughput, not just through the factory, but affecting in real life customers so that people could see this in the manufacturing site at each of the locations and divisions and make active real-time changes to optimize what was happening at the plant to create exceptional customer service and deliveries. The 3 case studies I just showed you, one on infant nutrition, one on distribution, and one on fencing, are 3 examples of hundreds where we've seen where people have used the model of making their data and making it simple and speedy win the hands of the right people to find not just 20%, but in cases much higher percentages on sales productivity and profitability in their organization. We have a white paper that is sometimes helpful that allows people to say, hey, listen, things aren't impossible, even if they're hard. The way you break down a pathway to breakthrough success is often as simple as setting aggressive goals and aligning everybody on how to hit the goals. If you're not hitting them, improving, creating clear, credible plans, creating a culture where it's okay to ask for help, and what to do when the 4 rules don't apply and you really are in a red zone where you're stuck and need a game change. We have a white paper on that, which the audience are free to download from nowsight.com for their viewing pleasure. One of the tools that Kevin asked me to talk about was a simple entry tool. A lot of people will say, well, this seems hard, it seems complex, it seems time consuming. And it's actually just the opposite. Often we will help people get the data they need that's both simple and speedy in place in just a few weeks. And we typically do it in a weekly 15-minute call where we're able to help tap into their systems and create visualizations that change the game. Simple BI is a great example of that. It's a standard off-the-shelf template that we have that works and interfaces directly with AccountMate. The cost is about $50 a day. The replacement cost is you'd normally need about 2 or 3 full-time people, admins, or people running spreadsheets to gather the data that this provides. So it's a very low entry cost, and it's very quick to implement. Setup is, usually starts at around $2,500. And again, for about $50 a day, about $1,500 a month, plus or minus, it gets a starting system up and running that gets you stair-step towards that 20% that's hidden in your organization today. We also have a tool that allows you to tap in if you have a manufacturing line with product running down that looks at real-time uptime, yield, throughput. And we have a premium product that is some of the screens that I showed you previously, where the client said, listen, we really know our business. And based on where we are in the S curve, we're either trying to get through the thunder to the next S curve, or we're trying to transition and optimize our thunder phase. We really want something more specific to the uniqueness of our business. And that's 80% of our customers really want that unique premium version that allows them to extract that 20% faster. But whether it's the simple standard template, Simple BI, or a more customized configured solution, the goal is to help you reach that 20% or more improvement in your organization. What we talked about today in summary was the rabbit duck filter, and I would encourage you to go and look at that with that mindset back in your organization. You'd be amazed how many rabbit duck reports you see running around your organization. Simplicity versus speed matrix of data, if it's confusing or slow to filter out or not customized to the people that need to see it, you're really not able to tap into the power of the data that you're already collecting. The S curve of understanding where you are on the spectrum of your life cycle of your business. Are you in the thunder phase, so you should be preparing for the next S curve? Are you in the plunder phase where you need to make some radical changes for shifts in your industry? Or you're coming into the blunder phase where you really need a roadmap to help track the thunder phase you're going into? We talked about the growl model that assesses you internally to see, is your mindset and alignment internally in the right place to take advantage of the data that you have? We looked through 3 different case studies and we talked about the rules of engagement. I am convinced, and I've seen this now over hundreds of companies, I've yet to see a company where there isn't 20% upside opportunity in the organization, whether it's sales, productivity, or profitability. And I'd encourage, coming out of this call, for you guys to find that 20% in your organization. As I mentioned, Kevin is inviting myself, and thank you for that, Kevin, back with Bobby from Seeger's Fence Company in January to do a deep dive and hear in the words of a client who was on this journey and share with you in their own words of how they experienced their journey in the process of putting these systems in place. I really want to thank you all for your time today. I will take questions, and that is the end of the presentation. We'd be happy to share anything that people may have questions on or take questions at this time. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to Kevin for closing comments.
Gotcha. Well, we've got a chat window in Zoom to hit, and thank you, Adam, because one of the pieces that, people see and hear me wave my arms about is how many gold nuggets are really hidden inside the system. And it's great to talk about gold nuggets, but okay, that's a neat analogy, okay? But those gold nuggets of information is really, that gets accountability. A lot of the examples that Adam just ran through, now that the information gets there in front of the people, oh man, I'm accountable. Now I know what the goal is, and that gets people's energy focused. And that's where, 20% more energy out of people is often a reasonable expectation, okay? Because they're floundering around now, not always in a productive manner. So we do have a question here about the real-time info come from each module, sales, inventory, etc. Yes, absolutely. Okay. The reason we're doing this on, this discussion with Adam and with Nowsight is because these guys know the AccountMate data. Yep. And many of you in this conversation do know AccountMate data. We can talk about the AR cust table and the AR INVC invoice header table and all that stuff familiar to him as well. But he has the expertise in the BI and in the presentation of that information, yet the ability that he's already tied that into AccountMate data. So yes, real time from, I don't think they've worked with, I don't know if you guys worked with the payroll module, but I know you've worked, with inventory, with sales.
Yep. Payables, receivables, the financial, it's funny, one of the interesting examples, talking about real-time data, when we looked at the distribution company and, they had all the data, but we showed them using one of our kind of filters. We said, listen, if your top 5 people work 20% faster, they will do more work than the bottom 15 in your organization. And they said, that's not possible. And we actually showed them the data. And when those top 5 people were incentivized to work 20% faster, they literally had people standing around because there were too many people to do the work that was on the site. And they've been running that way for 30 years. And so, Kevin, to your point, the data is in the modules of AccountMate. We just help you see it in a way that you can take action around it.
Yeah, and make the people accountable so they know where the baselines are.
That's right.
So if there's more questions, jump in. I'm not going to stay here and wave my arms too long. But we appreciate your time. Happy to follow up with anyone and get additional information on this. There will be another follow-up presentation in January where we do a deep dive on an AccountMate client that's used this and seen phenomenal performance.
And we'll often talk to people for 3 to 6 months before they make a decision to do anything. I am a resource for you. One of the things we love about Kevin and NexLAN, they are very collaborative and they're partnering and they want to help you. And that is our approach. We want to help. We don't require someone to buy a system or software, or, if you want to talk and you want to walk through your business and explore some of these concepts, we'd love to be available for you. And please take us up on the opportunity, because again, you winning is really what we're all about. How you get there is ultimately your choice. I see another question on the chat, Kevin.
Yeah, about how often companies have the overviews delivered. The information is available 2 ways, okay? There's generally a daily email makes sense. You can come in at 7 a.m., you got your email, hey, here's how we did yesterday. We want to be whatever fits you to be actionable, okay? Other clients, we have a client where we did not dashboard stuff, but we did automatic emailing, and we're emailing at 10 a.m., noon, 2, and 4 p.m. sales for the day. So it's whatever you like. Now then, there's also, the immediately accessible dashboard. You can hit it at any time. Here it is. Here's your graphs. Here's all the little gauges, and they're absolute real time within seconds. Okay.
That's right.
So
and
timely information.
Yeah, and we also can set it up where it alerts, if there's something you want to know right away, we don't even let it go through email or on the website. We'll create a text that you'll get a text of things that you really want to know, or have someone be right on top of. You lost a key customer, a line was down for an hour. You want to know those things right away. We actually bring those right to you by text. I think there's another.
Yep, especially if you have perishable goods. Okay, we have clients in this call that work with produce, okay? Darn, them watermelons are valuable today. They're not valuable in a week, okay? So timeliness is another one. Well, thank you all.
And Kevin, one thing,
Good to see you.
This is my personal cell phone number and my personal email. I'm actually giving you my personal information because based on my relationship with Kevin, I want you guys to have direct access to me. So this is my personal information. And if there's anybody with good rabbit duck stories out there, feel free to email me. I'd love to hear about them. When you go back to your organization, I think you'll see some of those rabbit duck reports we talked about. I always love to hear good stories. Anyways, thank you for having me today, Kevin.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.